Great. Thanks, Blake. Hi, everyone. So I see lots of familiar names and faces, some new ones. So my hope is just to give a little bit of an overview of what's new and what's been happening at US RSE for those that maybe aren't keeping up on everything that's been changing. So my name's Ian Cousin. I'm the current steering committee chair at US RSE. So on behalf of the others on the steering committee and the organization, just give a few words. So welcome. This is the first ever International RSE Day, coordinated from the various associations across the globe. We got together and said, wouldn't it be cool if we had a single day where something happened kind of around the clock in our local time zones to show solidarity and cohesion amongst the global community. So it formed in the International Council of RSE Associations. This is a group that we're involved in that has a common forum by which we can have these discussions. And exciting, we're heard that Asia RSE Association has officially launched as of today. So we welcome another global association to our ranks. Today's this, so what you're at now is the US RSE event, obviously coordinated loosely with the others. And a special thanks to everyone for making this and calling out Blake. He's stepped up and volunteered to lead the organization of today's events. I think it's safe to say this would not have happened without Blake. So thanks, Blake. You've done great work, and looking forward to all the great talks and discussions later today. So just like this event, it's international participation is obviously welcome, but what we do in USRSE, our membership in USRSE tends to be focused on US-centric time zones. Actually, I just realized this map is a couple months old. So if you're not on here and if you joined in the last 2 months, you can go to the map and take a look at your dot will show up. We've been growing steadily really since 2019 when things started to pick up. So if you're new, welcome. We're kind of a community-driven organization that has people from largely one of these three buckets, if you will. So RSEs themselves, these are the people that are writing, contributing to research software. We're not an academic only, national labs, institutes, private industry, and more. If you're working on research software, we welcome you with open arms. We have lots of students interested in research software engineering careers, researchers perhaps looking to transition to being an RSE, or software engineers looking to transition to a research work. And then folks who maybe aren't RSEs themselves, but consider themselves allies. Those are managing, supporting, sponsoring, wanting to support this career path in general. And we do that through this four-pronged mission. So we're looking to create a professional community, events like this, such that people can connect, share, and learn from each other, openly advocating for the increasingly important role that RSEs play on research, and highlighting what it is that RSEs do. Providing resources, so whether that's training material, whether that's information used to make a business case for how to support RSEs, having a repository by which people can access useful information material to support this career. And finally, but certainly not least important, DEI. And so we're actively trying to promote, encourage, improve diversity, both within our smaller community, but in the RSE community as a whole, the broader profession. So we're focusing activities and more on this in a second. So what's new? You may have noticed we've got a new look. Thanks to a very generous donation from Vanessa Socket, we were able to go through 99 designs and get a professional designer to design a new logo, one that we think really captures both our US-based but also has a refinement to it that we didn't have before. So we're excited for this. We're rebranding things slowly. It's been really exciting to see. And new this week, you may also have noticed we've got a new website that's incorporated the new coloring scheme, the new logo. If you are on it and stumble on some bugs, please let us know. We're still working out the kinks. I want to shout out specifically to the group that put this together. This is an all volunteer group. We're web dev on Slack in the website channel. If this is something you're interested in as moving forward, we'll be adding features, maintaining it, and fixing the quirks that we didn't quite stumble on. I do want to call out Vanessa. You know her as V on Slack. She hosted it on hers. She set up the shell over a weekend and did a ton of work to get this to where it is. And we clearly would not have been live when we are without her. So a special thanks to V, but everyone here contributed and made a difference. It was a real group effort. So thanks to everyone. In case you missed them, so we have a number of events that we've got on YouTube that have been recorded. A career panel, we teamed up with ADSA, the Academic Data Science Alliance, on a career symposium. We had a panel at PERC and the DEI speaker series. We've had a couple of them, more coming. I'll talk about in a second. One of them is also on YouTube. We had a virtual workshop in May about a path forward for research software engineers. You can also go over to YouTube and check out the discussion there. We have monthly community calls. We're in lieu of the community call this month, which would have been today. We're having this event, but for the most part, normally we've had a community call each time. We don't post these publicly on YouTube, but if you are interested in going back and looking, there's a lot of breakout sessions and discussions, so they don't lend themselves perfectly to a review on a video. We can go to the Slack channel community calls for our links to look at past ones. We have a few internal working groups. I already talked about the website group. There's an education and training group that meets monthly to talk about research software engineer training education, what tools, skills, what should US RSE do to support the education and training of both new, interested, and existing professional at various different stages of their career. So welcome to join into that discussion. Go over to the education and training Slack channel. Website redesign. It's now been resigned, so maybe it should be the website committee, and head over to website there, and the DEI group. And they've been so busy, they get their own slide. We now have a official DEI mission statement that guides the working group's activities. As you can see, it's also part of our overall association mission. This is something we really do care deeply about. And here's some of the activities that are coming up. So please go take a look, head over to DEI discussion for more. There's a media club coming October 28th, that's soon. The next in this really great DEI speaker series is December 10th. More details following soon. And a discussion that's going to come in an upcoming community call on inclusion in code reviews. If that's something you're interested in, it'll be part of the regular Thursday monthly community calls. This group meets every 2 weeks, Mondays at 2 Eastern, 11 Pacific. Everyone's welcome. Even if you haven't been there, come join. It's a very welcoming and positive group. Come join and join in the discussion. So those are the three that exist right now. More welcome. If there's something that you think might have some critical mass to get together, please, put a note out in general and start your discussion in a specific channel. These all started from like-minded individuals who had a common interest. The other big piece of news that's come out this year is that we're now a official financial entity within an Open Collective Foundation. So this allows us to transparently manage USRSE's finances. We very greatly appreciate any donation. We're initially fundraising. As the association has grown, there are some basic operational expenses that may not be exciting, but are necessary to keep this moving along and growing at the pace that it is. So we've just started. There's a support button on the new website, and anything is certainly appreciated. what's coming down the pike. So we're going to continue to raise awareness of both US RSE and RSEs in general. There's an event at Supercomputing, a workshop. It's a full day. If you're going to SC, please check that out. If you have a venue where you think giving a talk or USRC should have a presence, please reach out and let us know. We'll be continuing the community calls. Mark your calendars for December 3rd, 1 to 3 Eastern. We'll have our annual general meeting, get some more updates like this in more depth, and get to meet some steering committee candidates. We'll be having those elections shortly thereafter. If this is something that you're interested in, want to get involved in, please consider it. We're all volunteers with a dedication towards the mission of what we're trying to do here. And finally, next April, we really hope, everybody please cross your fingers, that we can actually have the workshop that was originally slated for April 2020, that the Sloan Foundation had funded a community building workshop to grow and develop the USRC Association. So we're hoping that can actually happen in April of 2022. So with that, I just want to remind everybody of the code of conduct. Maybe somebody can paste this in the chat. Essentially, be empathetic, respectful, welcoming, friendly, patient with your fellow participants here. Be collaborative and be careful in the words that we choose. So with that, I want to again thank Blake for putting this together, for organizing things, and I'll pass it back over to you, Blake.
Great, thank you, Ian, for that introduction. So just to introduce myself really quickly, my name is Blake Joyce. I am the data science manager at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. I've recently moved here. I was at the University of Arizona for the last 3 years as the director of research computing there. Hi, Vanessa. It's good to see you. So we've gathered together today essentially to discuss an overarching question that's been asked a number of times in the community, and that is, what are research software engineers, and how does that fit into the landscape of researchers and cyber infrastructure professionals? So we've invited a number of different folks from industry, from national labs, from academia, and people who work with industry. So again, thank you, Melissa, for adding that much needed side of the coin. So I'm going to start by allowing each person to introduce themselves. I've got a list here, and we will start off. I'll pass it to my fellow University of Alabama, Birmingham, Ravi Tripathi, to introduce himself, and then we'll go down the list. Afterwards, we'll go with Reed.
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Ravi Tripathi. Like Blake mentioned, I've been working as a software developer with UAB Research Computing Team for about 6 years now. And that was the job that I had when I started out came out of my master's degree. I work with a lot of researchers on campus, helping them with their research, working with them on sometimes on the softwares that they're working on, especially if we have to, if the software is not properly utilizing the research computing resources that we have available over here. And other than that, we work on a lot of deployment softwares, basically using some Ansible frameworks and others. So to deploy infrastructure that's aids researchers in onboarding onto the HPC system and getting started quickly with those resources. Thank you.
Great. And I'm just going reverse order of the list that I have. So Reed, if you would introduce yourself, and how do you fit into the research software engineer science and cyber infrastructure landscape?
Glad you asked. So my name is Reed Malevich. I'll take a moment to note that I'm a UAB graduate, my master's and PhD at UAB. I currently employ at Sandia National Laboratories within the Department of Software Engineering and Research. That's our RSE group. And so for me, I'm not as much of an RSE as I am an SER. So that is a software engineering researcher, right? And I'm embedded within an RSE team, both as sort of a consultant, team librarian, therapist, and artist in residence. So what I do is I do a lot of work on process improvement with teams. So I meet with teams that we work with and I help them set and realize process improvement goals, like how they work with their software. And my research is focused on finding better ways for scientific software developers, to do better work with their software, to achieve more, be more ambitious, and so on.
Great, thank you, Reed. Is Corey here? Yes, Corey, there you are. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name's Corey Cromer Edwards. I am both a PhD student at the University of Iowa, and I'm also a software developer at JMI Laboratories. At JMI Laboratories, I'm the head of their machine learning department, and I mostly go through and make sure that when we are building code for the research that they do, that it's well documented and it's using the AWS resources that we use efficiently. And so that's about what I'm all doing with JMI. And then my research, luckily for me, also works with JMI with the data that they have and collect. So that's everything that I do with the JMI and my research.
Great, thank you. Next on my list is Jamil.
Hey guys, my name is Jamil. I'm a second year PhD student at the University of Iowa. And I came across RSE about a year ago when I started looking at starting my research, and a lot of the documentation from other people's code and paper were just horribly documented, just no containers for any of the information, no information about how to get things up and running. And I was like, oh, there should be a solution. And then after 2 minutes of Googling, I found out you guys are the solution. So that's how I ended up here. And it's great to meet all of you finally.
And I think I can speak for everyone saying it's great to have you. Next on my list is Melissa.
I'll unmute myself. So I'm Melissa Fracken. I'm actually the industry programs coordinator or director at the Texas Advanced Computing Center. So we have two of the largest academic supercomputers in the world, at two of the most powerful, Frontera, which is I think still number 10 on the list, and Stampede 2. And my job is to work with industry and see sort of what problems we have, what problems they have that we can help them solve. And one of the great resources of TAC is our people. We have 185 or 190 people now. And we have a lot of people we have a whole group, for example, of bio and life sciences experts who went and got their degrees in those fields, but then decided they liked the computing better. But so their job is to work with the biologists and the life scientists who are doing bioinformatics research and need the computing and don't want to have to write the code themselves. And so we have RSEs, we just don't call them that specifically, but we're also teaching classes at UT in software engineering. So we're trying to then open the pipeline and build more RSEs so they can come and join this awesome organization, which I just found out about 2 weeks ago.
And I believe we could say that we're glad that you found us too. Next on my list is Memo and Ruben.
Thank you, Blake. Hi, everyone. My name is Mehmet Belgin. I go by Memo. I'm the research facilitation lead for Georgia Tech. And I've been working there for a long time. And part of my responsibilities included keeping the entire software repository up and running for many years. So I have a lot of experience and interest in research software. I'm currently leading a team of research scientists and research software engineers to continue to help the faculty to run everything they need to get their research progressing. So research software is a critical area, and it's the interface between cyber and stress structure and also the end user experience. So it is very important, and we're going to talk more about that in the panel that will follow today. So I'm so glad this community came together. Now I can refer someone as research software engineer, and people will know what it really means. And I think it's important to make that distinction, and happy that we are all going to that direction. I'll just stop here and I'll just pass it over to Ruben, my colleague.
So thank you. My name is Ruben Lara. I'm the cyber infrastructure guy to Memo's research software side. So we both work together on trying to keep up with all the needs of all our users and researchers here at Georgia Tech. As the sort of implied, I am the cyber infrastructure manager for the high performance computing cluster here at Georgia Tech. I've been with the institute for almost 5 years now, and it's been a fun ride. We just moved into a whole completely new data center with a completely new infrastructure, and that gave us the chance to completely redesign how we manage the software and how we get the cyber infrastructure in place so that everything could work together and give better service to the users. So I'm new to the RSE community, and should be very interesting to hear everything that's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. And next I have Nicole Greer.
Hi, my name's Nicole, and I am a software engineer in the Scientific Solutions Group at Purdue University. The group is a pretty classic RSE group, and I work on both like internal projects such as science gateways, where I'm working on connecting cyber infrastructure to users, and also I work with science labs as an RSE to try to raise the level of their software and standards. And I am also an active member of the US RSE DIE Diversity and Inclusion Group. And some of my talk today is going to cover some of the things that we talk about in that group. And I encourage anyone, and I will say again, to join the Slack channel for that. And I'm also the co-chair of Women in HPC at Purdue, which has some pretty similar, thanks, Melissa, which has some pretty similar missions. And actually, I'd be interested in hearing from Melissa as well as what she thinks about the collaboration there, since there is this spectrum of work in between cyber infrastructure and science. And I think Women in HPC is a really good place to sort of draw people from both sides.
I knew I knew your name. I knew your name, Nicole. I was like, I recognize that. Yeah, absolutely. The thing I forgot to say is that I'm also the co-chair of the Texas Women in HPC chapter. So was another thing that we're looking at is how to get more women into this space. So sorry, I'll be quiet now.
No, that's wonderful. I'm glad y'all are connecting. What a happy accident. And I believe that's all of our speakers. Have I missed anybody? Okay. If not, then let's go into, oh, and Ian, I'm sorry, you've already introduced yourself.
Do you want me to? Well, how about this? I'm going to take off my USRC hat, pretend I didn't say anything to start with, and I'll put on my Princeton hat and introduce myself that way, and I'll say more at 2 o'clock, I think. So I lead a team of research software engineers at Princeton. It's a growing group. We're up to 12 now, started in 2016. It's really grown a lot. My background is mechanical engineering. In my PhD, I came to the conclusion that while science and engineering and this was interesting, that it's really that I liked writing code more. And that's what I got excited about. And that's what I wanted to do. The RSE wasn't really a thing at the time. It wasn't an accepted name, title, kind of career path. And so I sort of weaseled my way into doing something that was pretty close, and have loved it since, and have enjoyed to see this community grow and develop and evolve into something that we now have a name and a title that we can rally behind. So at Princeton, we work directly with researchers. We have this model that I'll explain later, where we embed directly with research projects for long term, so many months to years, to help develop high quality research software. So that could be anything from high performance to maintainable, sustainable code that helps researchers from neuroscience, high energy physics, molecular biology, to the social sciences and humanities, and everything in between we've gotten involved in. So more later.
Great, thank you. So, we'll move into the discussion portion. Putting this together, a number of questions came up pretty routinely. And so I have a list of questions here, and we'll start off with how each person found their way to being either involved with research software engineers or became one themselves. If anyone in the audience would like to ask questions, please put that into the chat at any time. And if you specifically want to direct it or just direct to the whole panel, let us know that too. I can get us started, and I'll pass it to, I'll go back down the list in order. So I'll pass it to Nicole after me. But I actually am not a research software engineer, and I don't even claim the title. I'm a scientist by training, and got into cyber infrastructure. And so I work with a lot of RSEs like Ravi and rely on them heavily. You can ask Ravi. I talk to him every other moment, I think. So that's my background, and I'll give it to Nicole, and we'll go back down the list.
Yeah, so I'm not going to share too much because a lot of my presentation is about my experience. I will just say that as I started this job, and there were several years that I was an RSE before I even found the community. And I think we all have had that moment where we show up to the event and we're getting described, oh, what is an RSE? And we say, oh my gosh, that's me. These are my people. So for me, that wasn't very long ago. And I got started through research and through science, but again, I looked at teaser.
Thank you. Next, for Ruben and Memo. How did you find your way to being an RSE or working with RSEs?
Well, in my case, I've been working with on the corporate world for 20 odd years. I've always been involved with managing a lot of computers, not necessarily a high performance cluster, excuse me, but with how can we deploy things on a massive scale to make it repeatably. So when I had the chance to change careers, I began looking at academia on what things could be done with the types of skills that I had. And Georgia Tech came up, we made a good match, and I'm perfectly happy where I am right now. So my main involvement with software has been through the software team and through Memo and the group that he manages. And for the things that I've seen working with the researchers and with them as well, it's really impressive, all the things that you can do with a computer. I knew that you could do a lot of things, but once you see them in practice and once you begin to see everything that's behind it and all the simulations and all the data that's involved, that's really makes you appreciate, I guess, the environment a little bit more. So, Memo?
So I'll try to keep this short, I promise. But I was at the right time at the right place when I joined Virginia Tech as a PhD student in 2003. Virginia Tech was building the top third machine in the world using Apple computers. This is 2003. Those Apple computers are PowerPC architectures. They were running Darwin OS, just regular, Apple. And the only compiler available was XLF. And I was told that I need to, build a scientific repository for researchers. How difficult can it be, right? So it was extremely, it was a painful process because nothing was standard. All of the applications, scientific software, they're written for, x84, 86 and 64 architectures on a regular Linux environment. So Darwin is not even Linux, it's a different type of Unix. So it was a rough start, but I cherish those days because it gave me a lot of experience. Like working on something that's challenging strengthens your abilities and skills. So, but it also boosted my interest in software. And from that day until today, I'm still interested in working on software. Because during my years of helping researchers, I also noticed that the real power is not in the machines, it's in the software that uses those machines to benefit the researchers. Without a good software, you can have the best machine in the world. If it's not scaling, if the software is not scaling, if it's not using those capabilities, you cannot go far. Rather use an older, the slower system, you'll get the same results. So it is so critical for customer, experience. And I'll call it that because regardless of what our titles are, I think they're all in service business. And to make, our customers happy goes through using the resources in the best way possible, and software plays a critical role in there. So that's my short story. I'll pass it over to the next person.
That will be Melissa.
So I am not an RSE. I am an MBA. I have been working in high performance computing since about 2001. I started out working with the Coalition for Academic Scientific Computation, which is a national organization that all of the universities that all of the people on the panel are members of. So I probably know people at your institutions, but we, as an organization, the goal is to make sure that the country, especially the Congress and the White House understand the importance of high performance computing. And coming to work for somewhere like TAC 15 years ago, you see that, as I said, with like bio and life sciences, the researchers who are doing, especially the domain science, you don't want them to have to learn how to program in parallel for a supercomputer. You want someone to be the go-between to understand the domain science and be able to do the software engineering, the programming, the making sure that they can get the results they want on the systems that we have. And so it's clearly something we need to do. It's, as this organization shows, it's something that we need to show more of. And so the more time I spend in academic scientific computing, the more I see the need for it, both for us and for the industry users who, I know the guys who run the supercomputers for the oil industry, for example. And so they've had to learn about seismic and about all the applications their people do, but mostly they're there to run the systems. And they have to work, again, with the research software engineers to figure out what they need to do and how the systems can better meet their needs. And so it's clearly, something that's super important. And I know a little bit of programming, but I'd rather let you guys do all the hard stuff and I'll do all the talking.
I think talking and dealing with people and organizing is just as difficult. Let's not.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Ian, you're next.
So I already touched on it, of how I got into this was, so I had actually been working in private industry at a consulting company before I went back to grad school. And realized that it wasn't just the science, there was something about the software. And I had cooked up this idea that wouldn't it be cool if I could work directly with researchers on the research projects, but I'd write the code alongside them or with them. And again, I had no idea this thing existed, and it has evolved pretty rapidly ever since, which is exciting to see that, that I want to kind of hold the door open to others to get involved in this, because when you see firsthand how transformative someone who brings a software engineering perspective and skill set to the research that they're working on, how transformative that can be is pretty amazing. And to hear the testimonials from researchers of, we couldn't have done this without them. We didn't even know this was possible. We're doing things that we couldn't have done before. It is really exciting to see and hear.
Yeah, I can understand that for sure. Jamil, you're next.
Hey, yeah. So as I said before, I graduated in computer science in my undergraduate in City University of New York. And as an undergrad, we weren't taught how to do good software development. We were just said, oh, here's how you write Python scripts. Here's how you make a Java app. Go out into the world and have fun. And eventually I was picked up by a couple of national labs, and I got to see the difference between ad hoc code, where, you just make a script that does something, and good code, which had the documentation, all of the information, the requirements, and the whole 9 yards. And I started thinking to myself, like, hey, how come not a lot of people do this? And then I eventually got into graduate school, and I saw, oh, national labs and industry, everybody's doing some form of software engineering, and just tack research onto that, because now I'm a grad student. So one of the things that like pull me to it is I see so much bad code and so much horrible use of just programming that eventually I kind of want to help influence setting a standard and helping people move forward with their own research using these kinds of methods. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Corey, you're next.
Yeah, for me, when I came into the PhD program here at the University of Iowa, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to do machine learning. And so working with my advisor, I found out that I wanted to do microbiology research. And that's how I got in touch with JMI Laboratories, who do bacterial resistance. And so they do a lot of research into this tracking of bacterial resistance over time. And so I started working there as an intern over a few summers, then became a research assistant and helped build their software up. And now I work there full time along with getting my PhD, and I help build pipelines and do their documentation and whatnot. And they came to me a year ago and asked if I wanted to start a machine learning group there. So that's how I got in touch with doing their machine learning as well. And just like with what Jamil said, when I started doing research in my PhD, I also noticed that going back and looking at previous research, there was no documentation, or it was just here's a piece of code, have fun. And it was horrible to try and recreate some stuff, recreate research that other people have done. And so that was something that I brought with me into my later years here of my PhD and at JMI, of making sure that every piece of code that I write is documented and well enough, and even has script alongside the code just to be able to reproduce any data and results that I had. So that's how I got into all this.
Great, thank you. That brings us to Reed.
Oh, I didn't know if I was actually, you were going to call on me to answer the question, but about a little bit about myself and where I kind of fit the RSE picture is that I am a computer scientist and a software engineering researcher that is focused on how software engineering gets done, how we can do better practices, processes, and tools. And I work with RSEs on a regular basis within our team, because there's a lot of questions about how to do software engineering well in this domain. Our job is not just to bring software engineering practices, to scientific software, but also to be innovators in the space, to find new and better ways of achieving these goals, right? And so in collaboration, that's where a lot of my focus is. It's on working with researchers and working with RSEs in order to develop better tools, better practices, and processes.
Great, thank you. And Robbie?
Hey, so when I was doing my master's over here at UAB, I was one of the users of the HPC system. So I used to work in the bioinformatics department, and I used to work on the HPC system, and I just used to think that it's pretty cool that I can run so many of my analysis at the same time on a software that I can never do on my laptop. So that got me interested in what's behind the curtain on a supercomputer. How do you work on that? And just to be fair, I was a master's student, so just the term that you were working on a supercomputer had its own appeal. And the fact that you'll be working with so many different research groups and working to solve their problems had its own appeal as well. So after my master's, when I got a job working on the HPC system, that expectations that I'll be working with different research groups and every day is going to be its own challenge. I think that fact lived up to the expectations. It seems like every day is a new challenge where you're working with researchers to figure out what's the issues that you're facing. I believe some of my previous experience while working as a business analyst helped in that case, because that gave me some insights into how to, I guess, have conversation with the stakeholders, how to identify requirements and all that stuff. And yeah, basically that's how I started. And then I believe the fact that every day is a new challenge and you have something new to work on every day, I quite like that aspect of the RSE job. So that's why I've stuck here for so long.
Thank you. So one of the other questions was, how do you build a team and how do you integrate all the different disciplines and backgrounds and viewpoints and things? And I think, Nicole, actually, you had a question that you wanted to ask, or you wanted to talk about something a little while ago. Is that right? When you were talking to Melissa about, was it about women in HPC, I think?
Did I ask a question?
I think you were saying you wanted to discuss something at some point. I didn't know if you wanted to do that now or some other time. Did I hear that?
Yeah, I guess I mean, I made the comment and maybe you can steer it towards a question, but I think that women in HPC is just a good intersection and a good place to house people that might be interested in shifting from some adjacent career to research software engineering. And so I guess maybe my question is why is that? I think
it's it would actually be a great topic. I'm sure they already have their agenda, but I think RSE would be a great topic for the big Women in HPC workshop that they do on the Sunday before supercomputing, because you get so many people in the room who are so interested in HPC and who are working in the field in different ways and in different places. I mean, for all of you who have not been to that workshop, you really should go. It is the most amazing collection of brilliant women I've ever seen. I've ever been in the room for, which is amazing. But they do these lightning talks, and these women talk about what they're doing for their PhD and all the research they've done. And it is just awe-inspiring. And I think to take something like, you could be an RSE, you know, if you like coding already anyway, you could help researchers, or if you're a researcher and you like the HPC, you could do this. I think I'm not sure it's necessarily something that any of them are thinking about specifically. So I think it would be a great topic maybe for a Women in HPC webinar or something to do that. I think that would be awesome. We could do a joint one. We could do a joint one, Nicole. Texas and Indiana.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great.
Cool.
I must note something. WHPC chapter, we launched that in Georgia Tech a couple of months ago. We are very excited. And the audience, we have Chair Liu, who's the current chair. So this is a really good discussion, follow-up discussions. Maybe we can integrate Chair in those as well.
Oh yes, I just joined recently, so I mixed the previous part. Yeah, but I will be happy to get involved. I think yeah, Melissa and Lico, I probably will ping you guys together directly later.
I can speak a tiny bit on the intersection of RSEs and women in HPC if you like.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so and this is something I have some research coming out, some other work that we're doing. One of the things that we are looking at when we're looking to build up an RSE community, both within organizationally as well as internationally and so on, is how we bring more people into the fold. And that includes women, other marginalized or underrepresented groups. I myself always wear a pin here when I'm on official travel. It's an LGBT kind of thing. And one of the things that we're looking into is mentorship, for example, finding opportunities to bring people, like people who want to go into this RSE world, right? All of them are coming from many different backgrounds. Some of them are researchers, some of them are software-oriented people, converging on this. And we found that mentorship is really good, is a really powerful strategy for incorporating, professionals from underrepresented and marginalized backgrounds, for example, because it provides skill growth opportunities, but also psychosocial support. And I think that's something moving forward that we have to think about as a community is how do we create a community where everyone feels that they belong, where everyone feels that they can grow. So I think it's really important to, the RSE community moving forward.
Thank you. Yeah, again, we don't have to go in order like we were before, but I think just from the question that's come up a few times is, this idea of an official title of research software engineer is kind of coming into its fold. And so I'm kind of curious, how does everyone, how are you bridging that gap? Are you using that term, or is it something that's similar? Is there a way to build that community? I can say, at least from our part here at UAB, that we're trying to move in that direction. And one of my many tasks for the year is to rewrite all of our job descriptions, because right now I'm classified as a scientist and I'm not really a scientist anymore. Ravi is a developer, and that's not exactly accurate. So we have expressed interest and are moving in that direction ourselves, but I'm curious to know if anyone else is out there. And if so, what does that look like?
I can take it. At Georgia Tech, the structure is that from the HR point of view, a research scientist is a research scientist, and the title doesn't really matter much. So we have that flexibility to refer to us as what we see, relevant to the roles. But despite that flexibility, we didn't do a good job in the previous reorganization. It happened just before the RSE concept was more popularized. So we call the team software and collaboration support, but software is still in there. Now, in our internal and external communications, I always emphasize that the members of that team is research software engineers. That's how they are known in the community as well. So just before this meeting, started, I was meeting with my supervisor, and I was just bringing this up. In the future organizations, we should use RSE concept, and we should make sure that it's adopted and well known within our user base and also external community. So baby steps towards that direction, but it is good to have a well-defined and agreed on concept and also the title, so we can all adapt it easily. So I appreciate all the efforts the US RSE is going through to get us there.
So I'll point out, I'm going to directly address this in my talk later of how formalizing a name has really helped us. It's now a thing, right? And everybody's using the same language, and that really does help define a role and a position and a career, and it helps HR understand it, and it helps having a common vocabulary has made a big difference.
Also here from Sandy, I can weigh in and say that it's exceedingly important, both for hiring and retention, and for kind of positioning ourselves within a research center and saying this is who we are, these are the services that we offer. Coalescing around a name like that's very important. And as I see it, there's still a lot more room for evolution in all these names and terms that we're using. For example, so we know there are RSEs, right? I'm very, very happy about that. We also have other people that are kind of adjacent to those roles, as evidenced by all the people here, some of whom would consider themselves RSEs, some of them might not, right? And trying to say, well, how do we make sense of all of these new roles that are coming into computational science and engineering space. But yeah, to your question, the naming is very, very important.
I'd like to add to that. I think there's sort of two things, right? There's naming so you can get institutional pull, and then there's also naming to have sort of an understanding among us, like what is this job that we all have, and how do we work better together to do a better job. And there's sort of two different tasks. I think I'll speak to the second part. I think it's great that the USRC website has an inclusive statement about what is an RSE and who that encompasses. And I think, and my talk today will be sort of about recruitment. And I think in terms of recruitment, keeping in mind that inclusive mission, thinking about it more as like a spectrum of where you fall is important to broadening participation as well. But absolutely, making it more formal in an institution is, of course, a totally different thing and very important.
Yeah, and Raphael points out something in the chat. Would you like to unmute and talk about the, I think this is kind of related, the structures for the job titles? I think this is something that we're fighting with at UAB too.
Yeah, thanks for calling me out. I was just pointing out that we don't have, because we don't have an official RSE title. I work at a national lab, the National Renewable Energy Lab. And because we don't have an official RSE title, we also don't have a career track. We have a researcher career track that is mostly judged as far as the metrics of performance. It's mostly around publications and the traditional academic publications. And then there's like a technician track and some other things, because we have some testing on site for wind turbine blades and stuff. But the RSE role doesn't really fit into any of these. And so we're judged as far as our performance based on the research track. And so it's kind of generally accepted that this really limits our career growth. Like there's no clear path towards the top positions in research in our organization, even if, kind of regardless how critical we are, the RSE is to a particular project or a team.
Great. So that brings us pretty close to the top of the hour. And we'll have Nicole at 12 o'clock Eastern give us a little bit more information about her background and her journey, I think it sounds like. Does anyone in the audience have any questions that they would like to ask here in the last 5 or 6 minutes? Want to make sure that everyone's had a chance to ask questions and be involved in discussion. And thank you, Raphael, for unmuting and talking to us. Vanessa says that she's going to be here in 10 minutes. She seems excited for discussion, so that's great. Okay. Well, I think one of the other major questions that we had, and we can discuss for just a few minutes before we start going into speakers, was a kind of a matter of collaboration. And how do each of the groups, because you're mixing a lot of different domains and a lot of different disciplines, what does collaboration either within your group or external look like? Robbie, would you like to describe kind of our structure real quick, and then we'll open it up for the panel?
Yeah, so basically we have divided at a research computing group, we have divided our groups into 3 different sections. One is software developers, scientists, and sysadmins. Generally, software developers do work with researchers, but it's more high-level interactions or interactions that we have generally with the researchers. it's mostly our scientist groups that generally go in and collaborate. A lot of our scientists are also part of different research teams as well. From the RSE side, our collaborations are generally where we try to understand, like I mentioned earlier, where we try to understand the requirements, some of the issues that people might be facing, some of the softwares that they might need set up on the cluster for their workflows. And after these kind of discussions, generally the RSE groups works on those requirements. It could be like just sometimes a very short fix, sort of a patchwork kind of things, or if it's a very widespread concerns among researchers, it could become a project of its own, trying to fix that issue.
In our case, he's at Georgia Tech. Sorry, Reed, I got in front of you. We basically, we're a relatively small team, and we talk all the time. Whenever there's something on the software side, they come to us. Or whenever there's something on the infrastructure side, we go to them. So there's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of conversations going on every day. And well, right now with that, when we were used to be in the office, things were a little easier to just go and to talk to someone and chat up with anything that's going on. So right now we have to make the conversation a little more focused, but still we do talk all the time about everything that's going on on the software side and on the infrastructure side, and we try to keep in sync.
And I just to add to this, and my whole presentation kind of dedicated to this, but to Ravi's point, we also have a division between essentially three groups: researchers, or more RSE types, developers, and sysadmins. And I think what's really critical is teaming. We have made an effort to meet together at least once a week, where we all get together. We're all kind of like having discussions and doing things together. The other part of it is having a shared vision. So we spend a lot of time trying to craft our messaging to say, all of these pieces, all of these people, all of their backgrounds, they're all part of the same team. And this is how we fit together. And I'll talk about that in the presentation. But achieving that's been very important for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's generally the communication we try to send out to our users as well. That I mean, basically for them, it's a research computing group. Everything else that happens is within the organization. So.
Right.
I know something to say how JMI works. JMI is an extremely small company, and we have a similar approach where, since we are so small, we can just have everybody collaborating and talking together, whether that can be with the lab technicians, with other bioinformaticians, or other software or data analysts, and such. Like with the machine learning group that I lead, we have one data analyst, we have two microbiologists, and then we have a few even directors on our group, just to make sure that when we are meeting, everybody can have a say and everybody knows what's going on. And so if we do have any questions, there's always that room to talk and collaborate. So that collaboration is very important to us, at least, too.
Great. Well, that brings us right to the top of the hour. Any last comments or questions before we switch over to Nicole?
Can I throw out a plug for USRC? And these discussions, I think, are on lots of people's minds, and perhaps even beyond the panel and the people here. And the Slack channel is exactly designed for this. So if you want to continue these conversations, or have a question, or are coming across something in your work that you want to just see who else has thought about these things, put it out there. I mean, it could turn into a community call. It could turn into a broader and bigger discussion.
Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to discussing these things too, and helping however I can as a as a not an RSE, but someone who relies heavily on the community. Mercifully, thank you for your patience from the science side. I know we can be troublesome to work with sometimes.